Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dreams to Keys Realty YouTube channel. I am Jalon Strong, the Essential Millennial Realtor, and your host of this channel. Welcome, come on in, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss anything that we do on this channel. Also, make sure that you share our content on your pages or to those that you think are interested in this type of content. Make sure you also follow us on our other social media platforms, such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Substack, LinkedIn, and of course here on YouTube. So as many of you know, we have a link in the description box, which is also a link in the bio on our other platforms of social media. And each time we go live, we cover a link in the description highlight of the week. Also, we used to call it the link in the bio highlight of the week. This week, it is the preferred lender. We do have preferred lenders. A particular preferred lender we do have linked at the link moving about at the bottom of the screen, which is beacons.ai/Jalon Strong. There you'll see preferred lender ask about the grant program. Not all lenders or even our preferred lenders have a grant program. So make sure that you click that tab and contact that lender if you're interested. You do not have to ever choose a lender that we consider a preferred lender. We do have a list of preferred lenders, just meaning that those are individuals we've had rapport with or experiences with in transactions that we feel we can trust for your benefit, and also that are ethically and morally sound when it comes to these transactions from our understanding and rapport. So we would recommend them to you. But of course, you have options across the nation of lenders that you can choose from. So if you're interested in finding a lender or interested in trying out our preferred lender, please go to beacons.ai/Jalon Strong. Click the tab that says preferred lender to get in contact with them today. Our newest link, which we've been talking about for some time now, is Crown First Lady at crownfirstlady.net. It is a separate business that I created to present First Lady Scalp Oil. First Lady Scalp Oil is an oil that I created for myself to combat my scalp issues such as irritation and in my alopecia journey. I am now in the hair growth phase, but I still use this scalp oil for myself periodically after wash days, when I have braids, all types of times. And I found that those that are close to me felt that they wanted to try it as well. And so after seeing success for myself and having requests from those that are near me to have this oil out there, I created Crown First Lady as a business. And I'm so grateful for the support that I have seen thus far. If you are someone who has scalp issues, maybe you're going through alopecia, or you just want to provide something to your scalp that could help boost your hair growth, I would recommend that you try crownfirstlady.net and purchase either the 1 ounce, which is our travel size or sample size bottle, and or the 4 ounce bottle, which is our full size. So I hope that you would enjoy the experience of First Lady Scalp Oil that you can find today at crownfirstlady.net. The newest update that we have is the end of the year sale. We have an automatic discount on our website, which is dtkrealty.com. For all physical products, there is now an automatic discount of 70% off. So the ebooks are not included. It is our crew necks, hoodies, journals, shirts, all those physical products that we've been selling for some time. They are now automatically discounted 70% off. The reason for that is once we get into the new year, those products will no longer be available for purchase. I may use those products for gifts or for my clients at closing, but I will not be putting those up for purchase any longer once we get to the new year. So if you're interested in any of those shirts, journals, you're interested in just something physical that we have available on our website, such as our My Dreams Have Keys merchandise, this is the time that you definitely want to make those purchases, because once the new year comes in, no one can. So go ahead and do that now at our website, dtkrealty.com. Now we're going to get into why we're really here. We're here to talk about market data, particularly for Dekalb County. We're going to cover September 2025. I know we're in the end of November, but we got to cover September. We haven't covered it yet. So we have to go in order, and we're going to cover a new zip code for Dekalb County. So I'm going to pull that up and share my screen so that we all can see this information. Give me just a moment to make sure everybody can see it. And I just like to confirm that you can. So let me do that. And it looks like the video might be okay. So we're going to leave it with me on screen. If it looks like it's not quite working, let me know in the comments or on the replay. Hopefully it's fine for the replay, but if we see that the video is not working as well, I'll go on the avatar. I like to stay on screen just so you all see and know I'm a real person. All right, so if you're new here, we always cover market data once a month for the markets that I cover. I cover the market areas of Dekalb and Gwinnett counties of Georgia. So once a month, we may pull a new zip code, or we may cover the same zip code for about a quarter so that we can see trends across that zip code. Today, we are covering a new zip code that we have not covered previously for Dekalb County for this year. This zip code you should see on the screen is 30341, which includes Atlanta and Chamblee. This is not all of Atlanta, but it is including some parts of Atlanta and Chamblee. This information comes from the FMLS, the First Multiple Listing Service, which I have access to as a real estate agent, which is a licensed real estate salesperson. And this is compliments from the FMLS of the FastStats data. So we are going to cover all the data that you see. We're going to start with the property type of residential detached. We're going to cover all the key metrics comparing September 2024 to 2025, including the percent changes. Then we're going to discuss the year-to-date data through September 2024 and September 2025, showing the percent changes. We'll do the exact same thing for residential attached, and then we'll look at some graphs that kind of show over time how things have been going for both of these property types in this zip code. Let's get started. For the residential detached property type, those are, as the name suggests, properties that are not connected to one another, such as single-family homes. The first key metric here is new listings. For September 2024, it was 18. For September 2025, it was 31. So we've had an increase in new listings this year compared to last year, showing a percent increase change of 72.2%. I would say that's statistically significant. Now, for those that might be in this market area, they may or may not remember 2024, but I would say that that is something that could be felt in the market. For pending sales, these are sales that have not quite made it to the closing table, but we do have an executed contract. September 2024, there were 10 pending sales. For September 2025, there were 19, showing a percent change of an increase of 90%. So 9 to 19 number-wise may not seem like a big jump, but percent-wise, it is statistically significant. Again, pending sales mean we have not made it to the closing table. So this gives us a feel of what the market is doing, but not on the closings. So here, let's move to closed sales. For September 2024, it was 17. For September 2025, it was 22. Not much of a difference here as we saw with the previous numbers, but there is a percent change of an increase of 29.4%. So we could say we're just about where we were last year with a slight increase for closed sales. So just to pause here, for new listings, pending sales, and closed sales, we see an increase across the board for 2025 in December. Now let's move to days on market until sale. This metric is not specific to a particular brokerage where the property or properties are being listed. This is saying for the properties in this time frame across the board, regardless of who they were listed under and for how long, and if they were listed, taken off the market and listed with someone else. This is saying across the board for the properties in these time frames, these are the days on market until sale. So it's more of a cumulative days on market. For September 2024, it was 45 days. For September 2025, it was 36, showing a decrease of 20%. With days on market until sale, you typically don't want to see the numbers increase, especially if you are a seller, because this means that your property could be on the market for longer than you would like. So typically around 30 days is where we see traditionally buyers or the lenders for buyers can close. So around 30 days is typical for more of a neutral market. Here we're seeing 36, which is a decrease from the previous year, showing that it's getting more into a neutral category. So not much to say for that metric of it being buyers or sellers, looking more neutral here. When we were at the 45 timeframe, you could argue that it could have been more of a buyer's market at that time. But with the 36, I would say we're still close to a neutral market. For median sales price, average sales price, percent of list price received, you see an asterisk. This means that there's some data that we cannot include or were not included in these metrics, such as sellers' concessions or any down payment assistance. So keep that in mind when we look at these numbers. Let's start with median sales price. For September 2024, it was $695,000. For September 2025, it was $584,950, showing a decrease of almost 16%. The median sales price is the middle point if you line up all the sales prices in order. So the middle point has decreased. And for someone who's looking at a pre-approval letter or pre-approval information from a lender, this may or may not give them encouragement if they're looking to buy a home, depending upon what their previous pre-approval letter was. But here we're almost dropping by a whole $100,000. So that could be encouraging for someone who wants to buy a property in this market area. Again, it's the middle point, so there are prices above and below. Average sales price has the same asterisk as we mentioned before. In September 2024, it was $690,779. For September 2025, it was $783,309, showing an increase of 13.4%. So the average sales price has increased, but the median has decreased for the same periods of time. Now let's look at what average means. It's taking all of these sales prices and dividing it by the number of properties that sold or the number of sales prices that there were. That's why we have a difference in the median and the average sales price, and also pointing out that we still have that asterisk there. So here we see the median sales price has decreased, but the average sales price has increased, almost by arguably similar numbers. It jumped almost $100,000 more, where the median sales price dropped by almost $100,000 less. So depending on where you are in pre-approval or what your numbers were for a potential home buyer, these numbers may or may not sway you from this zip code. It is important to look at your wish list and also discuss with your lender and your realtor or real estate agent or real estate broker what your desires are in a home so that you can really tailor down to your preferences and really make sure that you're getting the most out of the home that you're looking for, especially if you're concerned about price. What we always say on this channel and with this company is that we do not want anyone to be house poor. So it's very important that even if you get a pre-approval, that you don't necessarily look to cap at that number. You can very well purchase a home well underneath your pre-approval limit. So consider that when you're looking to buy a home. For percent of list price received, we see for September 2024, it was 100%, meaning that the price that was listed is the price that it was purchased for. Now, for September 2025, it was 98.8%, showing a decrease of 1.2%. That is not statistically significant. I'm sure that was not felt in the market. Again, we have the asterisk here on this metric, so there's some things that can't be considered, but I would say that that is very close to 100%, and that is theoretically the goal. So looking at if the properties are listed correctly, they should be purchased for that amount. So that is theoretically what we're looking for here, as close to 100% as possible. And we do have that in both scenarios. It's very close to 100% and meets 100% as September 2024. Inventory of homes for sale. So this is not just new listings. This is what is on the market at this time. For September 2024, it was 32 homes. Again, we're under the category of residential detached. And for September 2025, it was 61, showing an increase of 90.6%. So we have more homes on the market. And let's look at the month supply of inventory. For September 2024, it was 2 months. For September 2025, it was 4.3 months, showing an increase of 115%. So what both of these categories are telling us is not only that we have more homes on the market in September of 2025 than September 2024, but the time that it would take for those homes on the market to sell is taking longer. So it would have taken 2 months last year this time or in September, but it's going to take over 4 months looking at September 2025 just to sell the inventory on the market at that time with nothing else being added. So there's more inventory on the market than we had last year in the same time frame. So I'm going to pause and just see if there are any questions, comments, anything I can address, answer. I don't see anything right now. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section and I will address them on the live or even in the replay if you put them in the comment section later. All right, so we're moving to the year-to-date phase of this data review. Looking at the same key metrics, of course, inventory of homes for sale, month supply of inventory are not there because it's year-to-date data. For the key metric of new listings through September 2024, it was 225 new listings. Through September 2025, it was 271, showing an increase of 20.4%. So we saw an increase month to month and year to date. Pending sales through September 2024 was 167. Through September 2025, it was 143, showing a decrease of 14.4%. So this is where we see the first difference in percentage, looking at year to date and month to month, where the pending sales were increasing significantly month to month, but have decreased slightly year to date. Now let's look at closed sales. Through September 2024, it was 159. Through September 2025, it was 132, which showed a decrease of 17%. Another decrease with our year-to-date data compared to month. So with year-to-date, we see the only remaining trend that was the same month to month was new listings increasing through September 2025. Now let's look on days on market until sale. Year to date through September 2024, it was 21 days on market until sale and 24 through September 2025. This showed an increase of 14.3%. When you look at the numbers themselves, it's a difference of 3 days. I'm not sure that that's something that could be felt in the market, but it is worth noting that these time frames or these days on market until sale year to date are much less than the month-to-month review we saw for September. So it may just be that during this time of the year that most buyers may not want to buy in that time, maybe because it's getting slightly colder. It could be around, something with schools. It could be a number of things going on, but it looks like year to date, the numbers are a bit less when it comes to days on market until sale. For median sales price through September 2024, it is $622,000. Through September 2025, it was, I should say, $649,500, showing an increase of 4.4%. That is not something statistically significant. We have already defined the asterisk and what median means. So I would not say that this is something that could price someone out of the market, but I would say it's something to keep our eyes on as we look at the market data moving forward in the next few months. Average sales price, we see through September 2024, it was $702,046. Through September 2025, it was $734,264, showing an increase of 4.6%. That is not statistically significant, and I would say the same as I did for the median sales price with regard to the year-to-date data here. Now, percent of list price received through September 2024, it was 99.4%. Through September 2025, it was 99.1%, showing a decrease of 0.3%. Again, this is not statistically significant. Both percentages are close to 100%, as is the desired percentage theoretically here. So there's not much to take from that data either. So not much change year to date necessarily, but month to month, we've seen more of a change. Again, that was the residential detached property type. Now let's go to residential attached. Again, I'm going to pause and just see if there are any comments or questions in the comment section, and we'll address them if they are. I do not see anything, so we're going to keep moving through the rest of this data. All right, so same key metrics, just a different property type. Residential attached is, like the name suggests, the properties are connected, which could be your townhomes, for example. So let's start with the key listings. For September 2024, there were 12 new listings. And for September 2025, it was 17, showing a percent increase of 41.7%. What we've noticed across each time we've done market data is that residential attached numbers are much smaller than residential detached numbers, which signifies what the market area typically may look for. So the smaller the numbers, the higher the percent change. The new listings here only differ by 5, but the percent change is 41.7%. It could typically, it is statistically significant. Do I think it was felt in the market? Not necessarily, but the numbers are so small with our residential attached property types across the board for both markets that I typically see higher percentage changes here. For pending sales for September 2024, it was 7. For September 2025, it was 7. Same number, no percent change. For closed sales for September 2024 and 25 was 11, 0% change. So we do see more new listings for residential attached, which could be someone selling or maybe new construction. And we're not seeing the increase in pending or closed sales to match that. Days on market until sale for September 2024 was 45. I believe that was the same or similar to the residential detached number for this metric. And then for September 2025, days on market until sale was 16. So in those 11 closings, the days on market until sale was 16. That shows a decrease of 64.4%, which I would say is statistically significant. And I'm sure could have been felt in the market, potentially, bringing out some attention possibly to sellers or seller agents or maybe builders. Maybe that is something that encouraged some of the new listings. So typically, as we discussed here previously with days on market until sale, we would like to see the number, if it's a neutral market, it's around 30. So with it being about half of that, you could say it's more of a seller's market. However, We're not seeing an increase in pending or closing sales to kind of really make that strong stance for sellers. And we also see very small numbers. So one could argue that the days on market until sale might show more of a seller's market, but you could also say that this market area overall typically does not look for this property type. So depending on the perspective that you take, you could say it's a seller's market or not. Median sales price for September 2024, again, we have the same asterisk as applied above, was $329,900. For September 2025, it was $407,000, showing an increase of 23.4%. Again, the median is the middle point of all the numbers lined in order, and we're still seeing an increase of the sales price with the asterisk being considered. So that is something that if you are looking to live in this zip code, you may want to consider, especially if your pre-approval hits a certain value. It may encourage maybe the residential attached property type if you're concerned about being outpriced, or if you're concerned about having too high of a mortgage payment per month. Maybe residential attached is what you're looking for if you could not meet the pre-approval, let's say for that $700,000, almost $800,000 sales price that we saw above for the residential detached properties. For average sales price, same asterisk, but we see for September 2024, it was $377,855. For September 2025, it was $411,273, showing an increase of 8.8%. So both the median and median and average sales prices have increased here with residential attached, whereas we saw the opposite, kind of an inverse relationship with residential detached. Percent of list price received, again with the same asterisk, for September 2024 was 97.8%. For September 2025 was 97.6%. So not as high as we saw for the residential detached numbers, but they are still quite close to 100%, as opposed to seeing something like in the 60s or 70s. So the statistical difference is not statistically significant at negative 0.2%, but it is something that is slightly different than what we saw with residential detached. Inventory of homes for sale for September 2024 was 29, and for September 2025 was 47, showing an increase of 62.1%. So here we see that just like with residential detached, we have more inventory of homes this year in September than we had last year in September. And I would say that both times is statistically significant. Month supply of inventory for September 2024 was 2.4 months. For September 2025 was 5 months, which shows an increase of 108.3%. Now, what I am noticing here is that even though the month supply of inventory is higher than we saw for residential detached, and it is higher than what was shown in the previous year, it's not as high as I thought. It's not as high as I've seen in other markets when the market is very much a buyer's market for these property types, and also where the interest of this property type is not as high. So 5, even though that is statistically significant and higher than the previous year, and also for residential detached, I have seen in some market areas when reviewing different months that this number is much higher. And so 5, even though that is a long time, especially if you're a seller and looking to sell a property within a certain window of time, that is not as high as I thought. It's not as high as I was expecting. So that could be, to me as an agent, a good sign if you are a seller, even though it's not the most encouraging sign. It's better than I thought. I'll say it that way. Year to date, key metric being new listings through September 2024 was 174, and through September 2025 was 192, showing an increase of 10.3%. So just like month to month, we did see an increase of new listings year to date, but the statistical significance is not there. For pending sales, year-to-date through September 2024 was 123, and through September 2025 was 88. We see a decrease here in this category for for this metric for the first time, where it's a decrease of 28.5%. The closed sales year-to-date through September 2024 was 108, and through September 2025 was 86, another decrease of this time 20.4%. So the pending sales and closed sales decreased year-to-date, where month-to-month they stayed the same, and the new listings increased, but not to the statistical significance we saw month-to-month. Now let's look at days on market until sale. Through September 2024, it was 32, and through September 2025, it was 44, showing an increase of 37.5%. If you're a seller, the increase on days on market is not what you want to see. This does look more like what I have seen on other markets, on other months, where the days on market until sale steadily increases, seemingly. But what we saw month to month showed a different indication without any change in pending or closed sales. So it is something that we'll assess as we look at this market or look at this zip code in the upcoming months. But this is where we see a difference, where the days on market until sale is doing the opposite of what we saw above with the residential detached. We saw the days on market until sale month to month decreasing in more of an encouraging way for sellers. But when we look at year to date, we see the opposite. So this market is giving more of a volatile feel. Median sales price, again with the asterisk involved, through September 2024 was $335,000. Through September 2025 was $307,000, showing a decrease of 8.4%. It's not as big of a jump as we saw month to month. The year to date differs by almost $30,000, just under that. Again, this is the median sales price, so this is the middle point, which is indicating that year to date, the middle point is dropping, but month to month, it did show an increase. So there are some stark differences here. Average sales price, again with the same asterisk, through September 2024 was $388,278, whereas through September 2025, it was $365,780, showing a decrease of about 6%. Again, the decrease is not statistically significant, and I wouldn't say that the month-to-month one was either for average sales price, but I would say that at least the average and median on the month-to-month are still in the $300,000 range, whereas the month of September looks like the $400,000 range. So this may give some notion that depending upon what time of the year that you're looking to sell or buy, you may encounter a different sales price. However, as we said before, median and average, they are as defined previously, and there are numbers above and below. So that does not necessarily make or break any pre-approval that you may have as a buyer. Percent of list price received. This is the last metric year to date. Through September 2024, it was 98.6%. Through September 2025, it was 97.8%, showing a decrease of 0.8%. This is not statistically significant. Both numbers are still closer to 100% than, let's say, 50%. And we do see a slight drop, but it does match what we saw in September of 2024. Nothing much to really pull from these numbers other than there was a slight drop. And there are some considerations that we cannot include here, such as seller concessions or down payment assistance. But both numbers are quite close to 100%. The 100% comes from the theory that if the property is listed correctly, it would be purchased at that list price. So there are some things that we do not know about the closings or the purchase price or the list price. And there is just an indication with these percentages that they did not match. All right, we're going to wrap up this market data review by looking briefly at the median sales price graphs, which are rolling 12-month calculations for the zip code, comparing it to the all MLS data. The all MLS is being pulled from, of course, the FMLS, First Multiple Listing Service, which is where we're reviewing all of this data through FastStats. And it's looking at, on the left, the residential detached, and on the right, the residential attached. So let's start with the left. It starts at January 2014. And what we can see going through the data that we reviewed up until the point above with the graphs or tables we discussed is that these lines never cross. The green line is the zip code that we have been referencing for this live or video, which is 30341, which includes Atlanta and Chamblee. These lines never cross, and the green line is always above the all MLS. There are quite a bit of bumps along the way, as we note with the green line, but at the end, we're seeing that it's pretty much coming to a point almost midway between the $600,000 mark and the $700,000 mark, which matches the information that we saw above in the table referencing residential detached. Now, let's go to the graph on the right, which is the median sales price for residential attached. Again, the green line is the zip code we've been reviewing, 30341, which includes Atlanta and Chamblee. And the gray line is the all MLS referencing the first multiple listing service. Starting at January 2014, we see that the all MLS is above the zip code here, but quickly, just before reaching January 2014, we see that they connect. And then from that time on, the zip code here tends to slightly reach a median sales price above the all MLS and comes quite close to the all MLS median sales price at January 2017, where it's not quite at $200,000 for both lines. But after that point, we see that the zip code here, 30341, it increases and at points spikes well above the all MLS line, especially when we see the line of the peak, I should say, after the pandemic. So there's a point after the pandemic where it peaks to almost $400,000, but then it does come down a bit and kind of levels off at the end of this graph, just at the line or just under the line of the $350,000 mark. Whereas the all MLS kind of takes a curve, still on the incline though, and ends, it seems like they both end at the same point. But the all MLS does it in a less volatile way than it seems that the zip code here has done. But it's interesting that the residential attached hits different points with the all MLS, whereas the residential detached never does, according to these graphs. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to come and just see if you all have any questions. I haven't seen any questions yet, but if you have any, feel free to leave them in the comment section. Looks like the video might be delayed. So let's go to Avatar. But if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. And even if I see your comment on the replay, I'll make sure that I respond. But hopefully you are able to see from the data that we reviewed that the zip code matters, the property type matters, the month matters, the year matters. There's a lot of factors that can be affected by reviewing any particular time of year and any particular zip code. With previous zip codes, we may have seen similar trends, such as the lower numbers with the residential attached property type, but the magnitude of the month supply of inventory may be different depending upon the time of month and the zip code. Different zip codes have different factors to assess for. There may be different aspects such as school districts or construction in the area, or like we had the pandemic in 2020 or as early as 2019 and the impacts of that. There are certain areas that have hospitals or different areas that might contribute to, let's say, traffic, and that might not be something that various residents around the area may want. That might increase the selling, or maybe different aspects might increase the buying. So there's so many things to think about. What happened in September 2024 and September 2025? How did that impact these zip codes in this area? And what mindset were the buyers and sellers in? So much to consider, but I hope that my review of this data today helped you to see that information, put some things in perspective. If you're interested in buying or selling in Dekalb or Gwinnett County, I hope that you schedule a free consultation with me so that you can talk with me about your home ownership goals, and we can review that in a way that's specific to you and not in general terms. Also, if you schedule that free consultation, which you can schedule by going to the link at the bottom of the screen or in the description box, which is beacons.ai/Jalon Strong, click the tab that says Let's Talk and schedule a consultation at a time that's convenient for you, that you can be available virtually on video. If you schedule a time and you're unable to attend, you will incur a $15 no-show fee. So I hope that you're able to take the information that we discuss here and utilize that to make decisions on whether you're ready to sell a property or whether you're ready to make that decision to buy a property. And regardless of what decision you make, I hope that you would consider Dreams to Keys Realty and myself, the Essential Millennial Realtor, for any services that you need, and schedule that consultation so that we can make sure we have dedicated time to discuss your home ownership goals and journey. I don't see any questions, so I will end the live, and we're going to discuss Gwinnett County in the next video today. So if you're interested, go on over and let's discuss Gwinnett County. Also, we have discussed the bingo series step number 11 today. So if you're interested in buying a home and you want to know more about the process, we have completed 11 steps, and we have one more step and some bonus material. So make sure that you go on this channel and find our bingo series to home ownership and review those videos. If nothing else, thank you all for joining. I am Jalon Strong, the Essential Millennial Realtor of Dreams to Keys Realty, where your dreams turn into keys. Have a blessed evening, and I'll see you in the next video.